Okay, I'll start by sharing screen. Just give me one moment. Cool. I'm just gonna send some music into the background. Let me know if it's too loud or if it's too quiet. Okay. Okay. Let me bring up the chat. Otherwise, I think we should be okay. Actually, don't know how to bring up the chat. Let me know if there's any questions. Oh, there's chat. Cool. Welcome to the intermediate workshop for Figma. I'm Daniel, and I am one of the leads. We have Danica, another lead, and we have an assistant, and her name's Chell. So for the agenda today, we're going to start off with wireframing. We're going to style those wireframes, and we're going to make a prototype. And then if you have any questions along the way, we can answer them. Or if you feel like you want to save the questions for the end, we'll have time allocated for that as well. Danica, you want to kick us off for these intros?
Hey, nice to see you again if you came from yesterday. But just going over again, I'm Danica. I'm currently a visual designer or UI designer at Applied Digital.
I'm Daniel. I'm the director of web dev and media at KSIT. I also do graphic design at UPhoto.
Hi, my name is Chell. I'm a freelance UX designer currently working on game design.
Cool. What to expect today? Well, today we're going to learn the importance of making an interactive prototype. And essentially, it's to bridge your ideas and communicate them to the rest of your team. Yeah, keep it moving. We want to learn a little bit about you guys. So feel free to share a little bit about your experience, any hobbies or interests you guys have. Yeah, pop in the chat, pop into voice. We'll give it like 1 to 2 minutes. It's 11:09. Feel free. Kappa. I'm gonna search that up. Capybara. Oh wait, I've seen these before. Crazy.
Very cute.
Giant cavy rodent native to South Africa. Very cool. Also, I got a comment that the music isn't playing, so let me troubleshoot that. Let's see. Why isn't this popping up?
Awesome.
Gordon Ramsay. I hear he has a TikTok now, and it seems pretty funny to me. Yeah, he has a TikTok. Mixing the passions of code and design. Definitely. All right. Thank you guys for sharing. That's the end of the 2 minutes. We'll get back into a talking phase in a moment, but let's move on. So before we start off with any of the exercises, I kind of want to bring up the plugin community on Figma. One of them that we're using today to speed up our work process is material design icons. So, Chell, would you be able to drop a link into the chat for the community plugin? Or I could try to find it. The specific one I'm using. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Oh, super fast. Nice. So essentially, when you're in Figma, you can access these through one of the plugin tabs. Just speeds up your workflow. But yeah, we'll give you a sec to download that, but I'll bring it to the next slide so Danica can start introing.
Great.
Or actually,
Oh.
This was for me. Sorry about that, Danica.
Yeah, no worries.
So for exercise 1, we're basically looking at Uber Eats. If you see here, each card has, well, I'm looking at them as cards. If I group this into an element, it's basically an image, a price tag, the title, and location. And then this card is duplicated for consistency's sake, and vice versa for the bottom. So we look at them in terms of components that you build a full interface out of. Now to Danica.
We're going to start off by creating our own Uber Eats component out of the one restaurant list item. So with the starter file, you'll see that I've already pasted in a screenshot. So if you have already duplicated this file into your draft workspace, that'll get us started. And here's the link for anyone who does not already have it. Make sure you're copying a duplicate into your draft. Don't request access because this is just a master file for everyone else to base off of. And you can do so by clicking on the top name or the title of the file and hitting duplicate, and it'll save a copy to your drafts. It'll show a little modal at the bottom. Just click that open. Let's give you guys a moment to get that set up. It's a different one from yesterday because we have a few more files in there that'll be more useful for today. Okay, Daniel, if you want to pop into the canvas area. In the other file, sorry about that. The first tab. Awesome. So you'll see here, oh, okay. See, someone has a bit of a laggy computer. I'll just give you a little bit of a moment. The typical setup here, though, is we'll have this exercise later on, but we'll have these screenshot references for our first exercise. Just to get us started, as a recap from yesterday, we're going to start off by creating an artboard, or as it's known in Figma, a frame. So we can do that by tapping the F key on your keyboard or just clicking on the second icon on the top left. And I'm just going to drag a rough shape to create the frame. If you want to get more technical or more accurate with your measurements, we can type in 720 for the width and 320 for the height. I'll just type that in chat too. And as always, when we create a frame, we want to name it. So let's name this restaurant list item. It's more of a card, but since it's going to be in a list, we'll have it as a single list item. What we're going to do first as well is create a wireframe from this little screenshot here instead of the entire list. Because as you see, like Daniel said, they are reused components. And we'll explain what components are as well. But we're going to try to base off our wireframe from this screenshot. So the first thing to do is to create a rectangle that's about the width of the entire frame with some padding around it. You can check its X and Y value on the top right where the design panel is. If you click on this item here and just see that, okay, it's around 20 pixels from the top and the left. I'm gonna push it to be around 24 pixels from the X and Y value and make sure that the right hand side also has 24 pixel padding, which I can do by clicking and holding Alt to see the number on the side. It's about 19, so I'm going to push it in by 5 pixels until I get it. And there, you'll see that the total distance on all sides is 24, 24, and 24. We need some space at the bottom, of course, for the title. So I'm just going to make a bit less space here, maybe about 185, let's say. I'll just type that in manually. So it is a 672 by 185 box.
Excuse me, Daniel, maybe you want to zoom your browser?
I can't zoom today. I can open up in browser. Give me one sec. I have the app open today. But Danica, just continue and I'll just swap it over.
Okay, we'll do. Yes, so it's a 672 by 185 gray box placeholder here. Next, we're going to do the title of the restaurant, which is just a bit below. And I'm just going to start typing restaurant title and change the font maybe to Lato so we have some consistency with what we were using yesterday. And since this is a heavier weight font, let's change this to bold. And I'm going to line it up to the left-hand side of the gray box. So it's also a 24 pixel distance from the left-hand side. Right now it's at 30 pixel font size. So it looks pretty decent. If it's at a larger size or smaller size for you, make sure you're getting it around the same area. And to see the distance between the gray box and the title, you can select both of the assets by dragging a box over to select both, or shift clicking both of them. And on the top right, you'll see in the design panel that there is a vertical distance. I'm going to keep it at 16. Let's just change it so it's a bit less distance between the two. So if you click it and then hover your mouse while holding Alt, you'll see the distance between these two items. Great. Restaurant title is probably not the best name for it, but we'll just call it that anyway. I'm going to copy this text line onto the bottom just so I have a text box already prepared, and make sure it's also snapped to the left-hand side where it's 24 pixels from the left. And we're going to shrink this title to perhaps 24 pixels just to see the relative size between the two, and change this to light since it is a bit of a different font weight. Maybe even a regular would look nicer. Yeah. And we're also going to change the spacing between them because there is quite ample spacing. So by selecting both of them again, I can change the pixel value between them manually, and I'll do 4 pixels between these two. And you can see that there's pretty good space. You can tell the title from the subheading. And I'm just going to change this to a generic number here. So we'll just do $0 delivery fee. And I also want a section that tells us how long the delivery time is going to take. So I'm going to copy this exact line just a bit over, nudge it over a few pixels. Say about 16 there. And change this to 00 to 00 minutes. Or, okay, it just says min. And since this is a bit more grayed out or like a lighter contrast from the other text, we can just change the text color to a lighter gray, or you can even change the fill color to another percentage. So 50% opacity, for example, changes it also to a lighter gray. Great. So we've already created the title, the delivery fee, and the time it would take to deliver the item. What we're going to do next is create this little rating circle over here. And if you remember using shapes, we'll select the ellipse tool at the top right, or hit O, and drag to create a box, or sorry, a circle. Let's say this will be about 48 pixels by 48 pixels circle. What we want to do is also nudge it so that it aligns with both the top of the title and the right-hand side of the image. It's okay, it looks a bit larger than this, so we're gonna shrink it down. We'll make it 40 pixels by 40 pixels instead. And you'll see that it lines up also pretty nicely with the restaurant title. Next thing we're gonna do is create the little number for the rating. So I'm just gonna put in 0.0 again. And you'll see why I'm using a generic number instead of the real numbers on the screen. And if you drag your little text box over the circle, it should snap in place horizontally and vertically. You'll see the little arrows and crosshairs that create the center. And if this isn't working for you the same way, make sure that your text box is set to auto width so it doesn't create a fixed text box that might move the bounding box to a different size. We're almost done here. Let me know if I'm going too fast with this though. The next thing you'll see here is that there is an icon at the top. We're gonna put the icon in later, but for now, let's create a little placeholder. So if you take your frame tool and you create a small box at the top right, let's say it's a 48 by 48 pixel frame. I'm just gonna try to put it 14 pixels from the top right edge of the gray box, and it'll just remain empty. For now, I will put favorite as the title of this frame. And we can do this optionally, but I'll leave this to the very end when we do styling. This is the promotion banner. It's not on every single card as you see here, so it might not be useful in every instance, especially for the main instance. Let me know how everyone's doing. If we're all caught up, we can actually start creating the component and doing a bit of styling. Right. Okay. Yeah, let me know if you guys need any more questions or need to catch up, but I'm gonna move on to creating the component from this single wireframe. What you want to do is take this frame, select it, and you're gonna hit Control-Alt-K on a Windows computer, but it's Command-Option-K for a Mac. And it creates this purple outline instead of the usual gray frame or the blue selected frame around other items. What this is a single component. This is your main component that will be used across different items. So again, they use the same template for each one of these components. You can also think of components as like, let's say a mother dog with a litter of puppies. The puppies are not carbon copies of their parent, but they have small variants that make them unique. And that's kind of like what we're doing here. We're creating an army of puppies. What we want to do with this single component is now start styling it in a way that will be useful So this rectangle, we want to change this into an image. If you guys remember from yesterday, we did some styling with the image by selecting the box, hitting the fill, and changing the fill from a solid to an image. And it creates this checkerboard pattern. Oh, sorry, go. Could you go on how to create a component again? Yes, for sure. Here, I'll just release this component. Wait, I did that wrong completely. Oh, this usually happens. Hold on. I'm just gonna detach this. Okay, so from your single frame that you finish your wireframe on, you want to select the frame. You can either right click and create a component, or you can hit Control Alt K or Command Option K, and it creates this purple box. Oh, here, I also have the shortcuts on the slides if you want to swap to that. You'll see that we have create component with Control Alt K or Command Option K. Right, awesome. We'll continue with the actual main component here. So again, we've created an image of the fill so that we can replace it with anything we want. And we're gonna leave the restaurant title and the rating, but we're gonna just change the background of the rating so it's a little lighter gray to match. We'll make it maybe E, all E's, E, 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 E. It's like it's screaming. And the last thing we're gonna do here, which is going to finally implement our plugin, is if you right click, go into your plugins menu and select your material design icons plugin. You'll be able to search up favorite as an icon. Oops, I totally typed it wrong. Favorite without a U. And you'll find that there is an option for a filled and a line heart. So search up favorite. Yeah. Hit enter. And you'll see that there's a heart. So we're going to use the lined heart. It got placed into a layer that I can't find. Yeah, it's up here. Okay, it got placed into the very center of my canvas, so I gotta just find it and drag it back here. And I'm gonna place it right into the favorite panel here, the little frame, and I just gotta change the color to white so you guys can see it. Great. It's a little small, so I'm gonna try to fit it to the frame a little more. I'll make it like 36 by 36 pixels within our 48 by 48 pixel frame. Oh, sorry about that. Missed this question. I didn't get why a component was made. Okay, so the best way to describe it is that a component is basically a template or a base building block to create the rest of your, oh, sorry about that, the rest of your elements. So again, if you see here, you're going to start to notice patterns in the entire menu list, that this is an image, this is a title, this is a subtitle, there's ratings, there's favorites. You want to use this as a template. So that's why we created first the wireframe template and then built on some styling that will be universal across other child elements. It's not the same as grouping, which is just taking two items and making it into a single group that can be moved around, altered at the same time, but this is a reusable item. So what we're gonna do, oh, yes,
I'll just quickly show like the behavior, but Danica will go more in depth with this. So I made another instance. So this is a child of this, and this is our main component, right? Let's say restaurant title, instead resto title. You see how it's applying the change to the child. And if I made another instance, abstract title, let's say you had like 25 of these, they would all be edited in the same format.
Exactly that. And that's exactly what we're going to go moving on to. What we're going to do is actually make it so it's similar to this list item where there's different restaurants. So we'll take one of the main component and make a copy. If you look on the left-hand layer panel, it created an instance. And an instance is seen by this stroke diamond. There's no fill, and the main component has 4 diamonds in it. Let's see. So copying a component would automatically make all copies change in any of the instances edited? Yes, that's exactly right. So anything you change here will change for the children. But with the children or these instances, any changes you make in the children will not carry on to another one. So if you were to change this image to be, let's say, a burger or something, then this would have an override. Any changes you make to the instance is considered an override. If I change this restaurant title here, so we'll say Burger King here, it doesn't affect the parent. And any changes with like delivery fee, let's say it's $3, it's 20 to 30 minutes, nothing changes with the parent. So we're constantly creating overrides. The only thing with an instance is that you can't alter the layers that are already established in the main component. Oh, how did you change the rectangle from fill to image? Great question. We'll do that with a base rectangle here. Daniel, you want to just show that?
Yeah, so any object you create, so let's say this rectangle, if it has a assigned fill to it, which is like the background color, if you click on it, you go to design panel down to fill. Solid represents just a solid background color. So like I can change this to different colors. But if you go to the drop down and you go down to image, it'll prime whatever your selection is for an image to be placed on top. And it'll just show this kind of like checkerboard pattern.
Yeah, that's one way. You can also drag in items from your pictures if you have any saved. The only thing I have on hand is this Pikachu, so I'll just put him in. Yeah, dragging it directly from your pictures folder into the Figma file works, and even using file, place image from the top left Figma menu will also work. But what you can do now is go on to Google and save an image of a burger, for example. I'm just gonna go grab a burger image real quick. And I'm gonna, oh, I should have done, oh, it's not working. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly save an image onto my desktop. And click on the image panel, and it'll give me an option to choose image. And let's get an image. Where was it saved? Here we go. There's the burger. Okay, it fills up the whole screen. So you might want to find an image that actually is able to show up nicely in this frame, and specifically this ratio, this very thin box ratio. But that works for now. Oh, I saw that. Did you use a PNG for the heart icon? No, we use the material design plugin. So again, right click, go into your plugins and select material design icons, and your modal will pop up with the plugin. If you guys need the link for that, let me know. And we searched up favorite to get the heart icon. And I saw, is there a reason why you added in a frame for the heart icon instead of just inserting the heart icon? For this reason, I wanted to get specific padding around this icon, no matter the size. So I wanted to have like a parent container in case the vector or whatever image you placed in here doesn't have its own container. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. So the model, I need to unlock the SVG of the heart icon. So use PNG. I would not always recommend using PNGs, especially when you have items that change color. Especially in this kind of app, they would change into a different color, like a filled heart, like a red heart. But that's fine for now. Can we get dimensions for the circle and the font? Yeah. There we go. Daniel's pasted it in. Thank you. I also saw a little bit before. I'm not sure if the question got answered. Yes, the first component is the master copy that doesn't get affected by any changes to its puppy copy. That's right. So think of it as like, this is your, yeah, this is just your template. This is not going to be touched, but anything that is created as a copy or an instance, a duplicate, however you want to think of it, will be its own independent item. I also noticed on their UI that they had a bit of a background on the part. So actually going to put that parent frame into use by creating a fill in that little frame and adding a radial gray circle around it. We'll just make it a dark gray there. And to add a gradient, you can change the fill of the layer to radial or linear, however you like to see fit. And it actually starts to create a little box around it. Oh, it's still a bit too noticeable, so I'm just going to change that fill to 50% or so. There we go. That's our first component made from the Uber Eats card. And to see it in actual use, I'm just gonna, oh, looks like our whole canvas moved. Just move that back up there. Gotta lock it again. Sorry about that. We're gonna just take a desktop frame at the top left here and paste it in. You see we have a big desktop, and actually putting these into use, you can start to stack them side by side. And you can see here by adding like a title for it, popular near you. Oops. You've made use of the parent component or the main component and started making a populated list of items that use the same styling. Might be a little large right now, so I'm just going to shrink it down to show you guys. And add another one here. Great. And again, with the parent components, you can always change it so that there's a common item across all of them. But if you wanted to change the styling for specific ones, they are overrides. And you can see that this does not affect this, does not affect the parent. Could you quickly go over where you went to add the radial fill? Yeah, Daniel, could you do that on the rectangle?
Yeah. This one?
Yeah.
So initially, Danica set a frame for it. And then within the frame, it was set to solid. That's just a background color she put in. Let's say there was no color. So when you first place a frame down, there shouldn't be like a color here. Well, once you turned it into a frame. So what you can do is to add a fill by hitting the plus. So that adds a background color of white. She wanted to create the gradient. So she hit the drop-down menu, went to radial. So it has like an epicenter at the middle where it's the most concentrated, and it kind of deteriorates or like becomes a bit more opaque along the edges. I don't know the specific colors she used to create the
I'm just doing a dark gray.
It's just a dark gray. Okay.
Yeah, both of them should be.
You have your first, the epicenter and like the outwards, the crust. I don't think those are the right terminologies, but thinking of a planet right now. Yeah, so you can
The
drag
endpoints.
that and pull the endpoints in and out to create that. You can also drop the opacity here. Um, so it's less apparent, but yeah.
Yeah, and these kind of gradients make sure that both the start point and end point are the same color, just so that there's no weird in-between colors that appear, muddy up the image, or sorry, the gradient rather. So you can do that by copying the hex value, or if it's if you created it from a solid, it'll take both of the colors as the start and end point. We're gonna go over the gradients a little more in just a bit, so don't worry about that. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that can be a little confusing. So make sure you're naming your layers properly and getting like, say like the outer layer is your title for something that surrounds another item. Okay.
Something you do for like a second layer of confirmation is to refer to the left side. It'll highlight essentially what you're selecting. So like if you're selecting just the vector, you'll see that this box is highlighted, as opposed to like if you were to do the full frame, the general parenting would be highlighted. But sometimes like if your frame is like roughly the size of the object containing it, so like if your frame was smaller and it was just containing this, it's kind of hard to distinguish visually. So I would refer to the left side if that occurs. Cool.
Do you want to move on to the wireframe for the app?
Yeah, back to the slides. Let me drop this for a second. Are you able to move? Oh, this is movable. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right, back to the slides. Oh, right, we're in browser now. So let me just skip forward a little bit. Render. Okay, so I guess we kind of went over most of this stuff, but this is just a short list of kind of quick shortcuts you can use when you're in the designing process. So for example, creating the frame, creating a component, or renaming. These slides will be sent to you, so you'll have access to it as well. Another thing you can do is just Google it on Figma's documentation. They have a list of kind of the shortcuts you use. And if you find that you don't know if you need a certain shortcut, just play around with it, right click on it, any object. You generally will have a list of things you can do. And on the right hand side, it'll have the shortcut associated to it. Cool. Exercise 2, we're going to create components again. So like we identified earlier, yeah, I think so. So for this, I think we'll just jump straight into it. Or Danica, do you want to move on to styling?
Let's go into this very quickly.
Okay, so as identified earlier, we looked at things in components. So some things that you can see as components here would be like the sections. You create those into components and you can start coloring them or styling them associatively, and it'll tell you the changes through. And if you have multiple screens, the filter bar and like the top section is very reusable. Okay, let's just jump straight into them. Back to it. Oh, workshop intermediate.
Okay. Yeah, so we've given you already a finished copy of the wireframe. So you could either use the one you created yesterday, or you can use the starter file finished one. But what we're going to do is again observe that we have several of the same cards styled in the same way, same dimensions, and they are copied across different sections. What we want to do is take this single album item here, and we've already grouped that into a single album. And we're just going to copy this outside of the frame. I'm just going to add, oops, nope, it's a group. Hold on here. We're going to change this into a frame so that you can actually create a component out of it. Daniel, if you want to click on this item here. So you can see, yes, currently it is a group, but for anything we want to create for components, let's make it into frames. So again, Control Alt K or Command Option K. And you'll see again that there is the component icon here. The easiest thing we're going to do for this is actually start deleting these items off the screen, because we want to now use this parent item as the template for the rest of them. So let's copy by hitting Control D or holding down Alt and dragging this back into our frame here, into our section. And I'm going to replace this item. Is component termed in layers as an album? No, this is just what I've named it. So components are often just called components, if not the frame that it was created from. So if it was like frame 520, then it would still be frame 520 as a component. So you just rename it, make sure that it's easy for you to remember and easy for your teammates to access later on. One other thing about these components is that in the left-hand panel under the Layers and Assets panel, if you click on the assets, you'll see that there are already some assets defined. And, oh, I can't seem to find it. Yes, under ours, you'll see that there's the card title, which you can drag onto the canvas again if you wanted to reuse it in other pages. Oh no, it's not default. For this entire wireframe, everything is renamed in some kind of meaningful way that might help, but this one wasn't. It's no problem. Yeah, you can see that we have some of our reusable assets available in this asset library. But by going back, we're gonna just start styling these card titles. So yeah, Daniel, do you want to do some of the styling for this?
Yeah, quickly, if you guys want to just duplicate this, Alt Shift, Shift, if you hold it down, is just make sure it stays locked in whichever direction you're moving, vertically or horizontally. And then once you have that, you can just Control D and duplicate, and it'll maintain the margins that you initially set for the first duplication. Okay, now moving on, I'm going to turn this and duplicate that into another section, just because from our reference, there are two genres that we're playing. Cool. So duplicate, move it down. Perfect. Now we have pretty much what we started with, but now components are set. So if I were to change this, album. Oh wait, that was a previous question. Yeah, so now when we're styling, if we apply the change here, it'll apply it in all cases. Vice versa, if you want to do it for all of these, feel free, but I'm just gonna show you quickly what that would be like if I were to delete these. And then Control Alt K, turn this into a component. I'm gonna duplicate it, bring it over a little bit. I have my first instance, Control D. That didn't work. There we go, Control D, Control D.
Didn't create an instance.
Oh, create an instance. Control D, Control D, Control D. There you go. I'm not as good as Danica. I sometimes forget to rename these. I think if you were to restart, name your first one and duplicate. Also, another thing you should do is make sure essentially this master component is outside. So actually, let's do that. Let's move that outside. Let's delete these. Let's actually name this. Detach the instance first.
You have to create an instance first and then detach it and delete the master. It's a bit weird.
Okay. Essentially, let me just move this out then. So this will be our component. let's call this filter. So that'll be our master. I'll move this in, make a duplicate of this, drag it out. Here we go. Oh, no, it's not working.
Oh, there's nested instances in your main component.
Oh, there are. Let me
Just duplicate and delete the master.
No, I don't think so. It's just the filter, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Strange behavior.
Yeah, there's a master in there. That's why.
Not sure what's going on. Okay, now it's working properly. No, it's not.
Just take another one here. There you go.
Cool. Yeah. I'm just gonna space these out horizontally. So what you can do is, if the duplicate didn't work for you, like it's not working for me, if you move them all into like a range, you can space them out horizontally like this. The quick shortcut is Control Alt Shift H, and V is for vertical, H is for horizontal. Now, if I change any styling to this, the master component, all the child components will also change. So for this, I don't necessarily want it to be orange, but I do want some border radius to it. So let's add some border radius to that. There we go. Moving on, for these, we're going to create some gradients. So first, go to your master, go to the fill, from solid, set it to linear. After you set it to linear, let's drag out the sliders. And then if you hold Alt, you can drag another instance to create more layers to your gradient. So here, I'm just going to change this into, I'm not much of a gradient master, but if you've taken a workshop with Anne, she loves gradients. And she made our, we designed a mobile game together and she made it completely out of gradients, pretty much. It's kind of crazy. And you should be here leading the gradients section.
Oh my God.
Like I'm creating some like rainbow vomit right now, but yeah. Another thing like you probably want to do is make this like blend a bit better. So what I can do is just drop the opacity and
That changes the opacity of the fill too, though.
yeah, I just don't want these harsh lines to be as apparent. But another thing with the harsh lines being very apparent is how contrasting the colors are next to each other. So if you be mindful of the contrast to each other, it'll be less harsh when you're working with it. Cool. So moving forward, in our parent filter, let's just add text to it. Filter in all caps. And I'll snap it to the middle. For this, there won't be a fill, except there will be a stroke, and it'll be a black stroke. Maybe not solid black. Let's move it up a little bit. I have mine at 20. Set it to 2. For filter, maybe I don't want it to be all white. So let's set this color also to 20. Cool. So we have this section colored. another thing is in the original application, they basically had a gradient attached to the whole background. Whereas for us, let's say we right now have another background attached to this. We just did this to signify a bit more grouping, but right now we don't need it. I guess for me, if you create like a styling also, let's say you want to save that styling and use it for consistency's sake, what you can do here is select the color, click these 4 dots and create a color style. So something that will look better is the gradient that we had set previously. And this is just a band of colors. Let's see if I could show you this specific instance. Okay, moving on. I'm just going to set a background color. This will be another gradient. So what you can do here is do the same kind of processes to set a gradient, a linear gradient, drag your sliders to come down diagonally. Your bottom slider, it's generally very dark. So try to make it pretty dark. Set the opacity a bit higher. And then for the top, they had it set to a pretty reddish color, but it's a little bit saturated here. And then they had more bandings within it. So what you can do is create more steps within your gradient and make sure a lot of the darkness is covering the bottom section. And at the top, it's a bit brighter. For time's sake today, I'm just going to show you what it will look like with our initial gradient that we set. Well, this is the reference image. The gradient we had was red. And then for here, we probably want to change the text colors because it's a little bit inaccessible. Selecting my frame, I can go into our color selections. And just because I knew the initial colors when we write text is 000, I just pinpointed that. I'm going to set it to white. Cool. Seems like we're a little bit tight on time, so we're just going to wrap it up. I suppose we should get these all styled. Maybe I'll remove this. I'll let you guys style that, but we'll bring in some icons down here. So for here, you didn't get how to change color of all the text data to white. Okay, I got you. So if you select the frame, or if you select like each individual color, especially here, since these are components and you switch them to white, what I did here was just override it. So what you should do here is actually just set this to white. And then all your child components will have white text. What I did was click on the frame. I identified that these are the colors within the frame, and 000 is the default black color that's assigned to all our text elements. And that's pretty much what I wanted to change. So by selecting here, I went down to selection colors and set 000 to FFF. Well, I guess it also affects other cases that have 000, which is this bottom section. Though this bottom section will be restyled. So what I can do here is apply another gradient to it. It's a linear gradient. And then I'll have this set pretty dark. There we go. And drop this to black. So roughly like that. And for the filters, it seems like they have a white stroke to it. So instead, and this stroke is a little bit too thick. So since it's already a component, I'm just going to change this set the stroke to be white. And there seems to have like a little bit of opacity set to it. It's a little bit opaque. And they also didn't have a background color. So I'm gonna get rid of the background color, change this to be a bit lighter. There we go. Making use of our material icons, I'm gonna go straight to plugins. And this will probably be the last thing we do before moving on to prototyping. But we're going to add some icons. Some of the icons they have here is search, profile, and oh, there was this one trick you did with earlier text. How do you do it so it was auto width to fit into a shape? I believe Danica just created some text and set this to auto width. Okay, yeah, and if this was like really long and you want to like snap it to the size of your text, just double click. Okay, moving on quickly, let's put some of our icons in here. I want a search icon. No search in the classic, maybe filled. Okay, we have one in filled. Ooh, okay. I'm going to need a premium membership. Let's see. Danica, do you got one of those memberships?
Nope.
Actually, I think there is a search icon. Maybe you can try.
There is a search one?
It's not the most.
Well, maybe use don't use capitalized.
Oh, search.
Right.
Oh, it works.
Wait, it's filled? Can you do a
Classic.
classic? Yeah.
Oh, we got a classic one. Let's go. All right. So I got a search icon. I also want a profile icon. Thank you.
Just use a circle.
我现在在教课有100个学生。Sorry about that. Next, we need a profile icon. Let's see. There's no profile icon.
I just use a circle and fill it with a icon. Fill it with the.
I guess we could do that. But actually, let's not do that. We'll still use an icon, but maybe we'll use a different icon than that one. So we'll go through material design icons. Oh, we have one right here. And that got placed up here. So we have 2 out of 3 icons and another one's just streaming. For that, it might be hard to find one, so we might have to make one. But for now, let's just put a question mark for it.
That icon is called cast.
Cast, we have that. Oh, wow. Okay, let's go. Sometimes when you place icons on here, I still haven't figured out how, but it places them pretty randomly onto your screen. I thought maybe dragging would fix some of that, but it does not. But yeah, let's bring these in. So we have our profile icon, we have our search icon, and we have our cast icon. But I believe these 2 are swapped. So let's bring search into the middle one, and then bring cast into our left one. And then I'm just gonna select all, and then set these fills. 1 second. They are gray fills. Danica, any idea why I'm not able to select the gray? Oh, because they're not on each other. I see.
Oh, it's a separate box.
It's a separate box. So what you can do is instead select for that specific box. it's none of these vectors. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna move this out for a sec. What is this? Group 7. So I guess in this instance, it's a great time to stress the importance of naming your groupings or layers or basically anything in your file system. So call to action, and this is for top bar. So if I had that name, for example, and I wasn't able to figure out where everything was, I just go and look through my files. Oh, there we go. Call to action top nav bar, and I'll just set these to uncolored. And then, so by doing that, I just want to color these. Let's make these white. Selection colors, set it to white. Awesome. So we have like a pretty roughly styled app. I guess Danica's already added some of the bottom navigation, and then we just need the playlist. But for today's sake, I think we'll leave playlists out and we'll move straight into prototyping. But just jumping back to the slides. So within the design process, you go from sketches, low fidelity to medium fidelity, which would be like a gray box wireframe. And then this would be something where it's like a high fidelity, where you add it and make it kind of as much as one-to-one to what your final product should look like. Essentially, the keyword is the final representation of the product of your user interface. And then interactions in this sense is to communicate kind of how each screen responds to the user's quote unquote interactions and how they engage with it. So this could be important in communicating to your stakeholders, such as your developers, and making sure they understand how you want the app to respond. Because you're ultimately in charge of the design, but at the same time, your developers have to be able to make it. So yeah, this is important to make sure it's feasible and if it works. Moving on. So this is what we just did already. So the styling, and these are some screenshots of the colors that we used. So within the linear gradients, you get pretty fancy with it. This is probably something Anne really loves doing, is just dragging all these and making it super pretty. But our wonderful assistant Chell made this and with the background as well. Yeah, moving on. Interaction. Okay, for interaction, I'll kick us off. So if you guys have used YouTube Music or Spotify, you notice that these albums will slide horizontally. So you can select an album corresponding to this section. And then also scrolls vertically, going through different genres or themes of albums. So what we want to do is to mimic that interaction of horizontal scrolling right now.
If you go to the right side, we have the one that's already done, but it doesn't have the interactions yet.
Okay, so, oh, perfect. What we can do here is select all this and turn it into a frame. Now it's primed for interactions. So after it's a frame, we're just going to drag this in to, well, the reason for this is we want to maintain, this is the size of the phone. This is how much screen real estate we have. So this is where the interactions will be placed. Okay, after that, you want to clip the content. So what that means is it won't flow past this point, right? So it'll be clipped along this border area. All right, moving forward. Controller command drag. Yes. So when you hit controller command, you can drag this, but if you don't, it'll start squishing and squashing the content. Yeah. Okay. So once you have created the frame, you kind of constrain to the size you wanted and clip the content. It's been primed for your interaction. So we want to go into the prototype section. And from here, to create the interaction, we just basically want horizontal scrolling. Yes, naming it to scroll. Yes. Yeah, so make sure you select just like this area. This title doesn't scroll unless you wanted it to, but based off of the interaction of what you want, be pretty detail oriented, because if the developer ends up making it and it's not like how you wanted it, it can create a lot of stress and trouble. Yes, it contains a space that is allowed to scroll. After making a frame, dragging borders. It'll create the area where you want to move, but clipping is something you also have to select. So it's within the design panel. Just make sure it's selected. Yeah, any scrollable area has to be shorter than the size of the content. All right, so we have it set for horizontal scrolling, and I'm just gonna quickly demo this, what it looks like. But essentially it just scrolls horizontally, but now we want to do a vertical scrolling. So Danica will just quickly show you what that would look like.
Yeah, great. So we have already defined that scroll there, and we want to do it the same on this next section. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this section since it's already done. And I'm just going to make some spacing between those, 30 pixels. And I want one more so that we have extra space to scroll vertically. I'm just gonna, oh, did it work? Yes. So you can see on your layer panel on the left-hand side that 3 album rows have been created. And by selecting them, you can see that they go overflowing from the canvas. If you want to zoom out a little. Yeah, you'll see I've selected 3 of these sections and they are completely separate from the canvas. I'm going to create another frame around this by hitting Control-Alt-G or Command-Option-G, and it creates a frame. I'm going to call this vertical scroll. But you're not done just yet. So what we want to do is define pretty much the containable area or the amount of padding you'd also need for it to scroll in a visible area. So I'm going to, again, hold down Control and drag this area so it's just a little bit higher, kind of goes closer to the filter area, so it has a bit more padding on the top. And for this bottom part here, I want to drag it so that it goes above the nav bar, so it hits right where the nav bar starts. The reason for this is that your nav bar is consistently on the fixed bottom of your screen, and as you scroll, this will always be present. Last thing to do is to click on the vertical scroll, go into prototype, and change overflow scrolling to vertical scrolling. And we can look at that in our preview present panel. That it scrolls both up and below. But you can see that it is kind of clipping as it goes vertically. So we're going to fix that as well. This is a bit of an issue that happens often with these apps. So no worries if this still happens to you. I think the reason why is that I forgot to hit clip content, and this is why it's so important to hit clip content. So now when we scroll in the preview, it will not go above the filters or the YouTube music logo. Another thing or a cool trick for prototyping is something we forgot to mention is that on the prototype panel, without selecting anything, you can change the device to be whatever the frame size is. So I changed it to iPhone 11 Pro in the prototype panel. Deselect everything, or just click on the canvas and you can see the different models. You can change it to different colors as well. So when you are previewing it, it actually has the phone screen and the frame around it, so you can see it in real time. And now going back, we can view it in horizontal and vertical scroll. If we want to add more content to a clip content frame, is there a convenient way or tip to see and fix the added contents? Yes, in this case, you would actually deselect clip content. Our parent frame here, the entire home final page, has clip content to that as well. So now on releasing that, you can see all of them. You can also move them out of the frame first and then edit them there, put them back in the frame, but it might move other content around. So you just want to be careful. We chose overflow scrolling from interactions in the prototype for selected filter, right? For the selected filter, these ones are, we haven't done this one yet, but we just can set this entire thing to horizontal scrolling since it's already clipped. I don't get how the error you faced in scrolling was fixed, text merging. We hit clip content and that solves it. Make sure that if there is other content that you don't want to override as you are scrolling, clip content will save your life. Hopefully that one wasn't too hard to get used to. Same principle applied for the filters. As you see here, I'm going to just unclip all the content. There's several filters that go across this horizontal scroll. The master filter frame is already clipped so that the edge of the screen is where it stops and it does overflow. But when you clip everything else, you go onto your prototype again, you'll see that the filters are nicely scrolling.
Also for Mohammed, you have to be on the design panel. So when you select the frame, and then it'll present clip content at the bottom. I'm just gonna quickly refresh this. Cool. So we have vertical scrolling and horizontal scrolling on our albums. And for our filters, you can scroll through, and essentially what you do here is just click on the filter and it should apply and change these to a different screen. So, sorry about that, but yeah, just keep letting us know if you have any questions. We'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. Yeah. I guess the last thing we want to do is to link screens. So like with any user interface, there generally is more than one screen. For YouTube Music, the interaction here is if you find an album you like, you select the album, and it'll bring you to another screen. And from this screen, you can choose the song you want to play. And then once you play the song, it'll show you the song being played and just bring that up as a screen. So for today, we're not actually going to make these two other screens as time doesn't allocate for that. However, we're going to show you how to link the screens together. So when you guys are building out your personal interfaces, you can create these interactions for yourself. So for this, we're going to select into this grouping and go straight to an album. Select prototype. And for this, we want to add an interaction. And from tapping this, we want to go into the next screen. Cool. And as you see here, on tap is the interaction that we're doing. So it's pretty much a click with your mouse, or in phones, it would be a tap on the touchscreen. And what it's going to do in terms of interaction is going to navigate you to another location. And the location here defined as playlist final. And just stressing the importance of naming again is that you're able to distinguish what screen I want to go to just because it's properly named. Is click and tap the same thing? For here, the interaction will be the same, so it shouldn't matter. I believe it's on tap because we're using mobiles. But with today's interaction, like for the workshop and what we want to engage for, on tap and on click should be the same thing. But on tap is more for mobile. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly show you guys when we click on this album. Mine, it is the first album. So if you click the other albums, it will not respond. So the first one, and it'll send us to the second screen. So this is the playlist screen. And then we want to select one of the songs and send us to the playlist detail or the song screen. Song final screen. Let's just say it's the first song. Actually, let's make it the second song. Cool. What you can do is either like define your selection further. So if you want this to create a certain interaction, or if you want this as in the song title and the artist name grouping or song title, or if you want just the artist name to go to an artist page, it's up to you. But you would have those pages created. I guess for today's instance, I'm just going to create the whole interaction on the box itself to simplify things. And I'm just going to send us to the next page. On tab, navigate to and song final. Here's the animation instant. We're not going to go over this today, but what you can do is play around with it. And it kind of, right now, the animation is just, it'll instantly transfer us to the next screen. There are other ways to transfer, like a dissolve, maybe like an ease in. So let's play the whole thing through. Okay, so first, click the album. Next, click the song. And then we have the song title. One thing you guys can do is we put a back button here. You guys can link these interactions to go back to the previous screens. So you have a fully working interface. But yeah, I think that concludes our intermediate workshop for Figma. And then we have time for questions. So it's great today.
One thing I want to add is if you are adding any interactions to a master, like let's say we had this song master on the right here. Oh, the master component. If you add interaction to this, it will follow for every single one of the instances. So if you wanted to link this album, let's say this album cover to the home final, every single one of these instances, if you see in the prototype panel, will link to that as well. So watch out where you create your master. It's most common or best practice, let's say, to make it outside of the frame and have them in like a separate file, like a design system. But yeah, just something to note.
Awesome workshop, guys. And that's about it, right? That's all you guys have for today?
Yeah, that pretty much concludes the workshop. Also,
Awesome.
thanks, Eric.
Go to Chell's motion design workshop to learn more about Smart Animate. It'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. Hopefully you guys learned some, because in my workshop before this, people had questions about interactivity and making interactive prototypes using Figma. So hopefully you guys learned something from here, and we'll be able to present some really great prototypes on the Proton itself. And especially after Chell's workshop, it's going to be even more interesting. Irene has a question for you, Chell, I think. Gotcha, you got it. Okay, with that, we'll be taking a break for about 30-35 minutes. We'll see you after for the motion design workshop at 1 o'clock.